Hi everyone, I'm Jace.
And I'm Ling.
Welcome to another episode of Freelance Creative Exchange where we talk about freelancing and the gig economy in Singapore and beyond.
And today we have two very special guests with us, Hariz and Ryan.
Hi guys.
Yay!
So Hariz has his voice on almost most platforms, from musical theatre to film, radio. You've even done Emceeing
Yes.
and performing in original music stages. You have moved on to other things like digital marketing, copywriting, and now also finance, right?
Yes, correct.
And Ryan over here, you've been a freelancer for over 15 years.
Yep.
And he has actually achieved what we call the super freelancer status among us.
I'm just old.
Super old freelancer status.
Super old freelancer. I take a look at the content that's going on, what people are reading on the internet. I try to come up with a content calendar plan based around that, what sort of articles we're going to come up with, how to jump on the news, a response to the news, help to coordinate some teams of writers in getting out that content. And this is most of what I do for most of my clients these days. So it's a little bit different from the past when it would just be, here's the headline, Ryan, go and write it. So it's a little bit more work now.
Right.
Well, for myself, so there's a few things that I'm doing that I would consider freelance and something that is kind of like my full-time job, kind of. So recently, finance has been my full-time job. I'm an independent financial advisor. And recently, I've done a lot of content online on like personal finance blogs, Q&As, answering people's questions online of like 650 plus answers on like Seedly Q&A, stuff like that. So that's like the most recent stuff. But right before that, I just entered like the business scene. Just graduated from my university, started doing digital marketing, copywriting, and I'm actually very heavily involved in Facebook advertising. So a lot of my freelance work has actually been like Facebook ad audits, writing copy for Facebook ads. I do a lot of consults with like Americans. So there's this, a lot of my work actually come out from Facebook groups. I'm very active on multiple Facebook groups. There's one Facebook group called the Facebook Ad Buyers, and I'm quite active there. And so some people who are in my industry and they want some help, they message me and I do like Skype consultations, stuff like that. So not a lot of local work for like the business part, a lot of international work.
That's
Then
great.
recently I've done also with helping friends who have offices in Indonesia to, do audits over there, to translate some things, to write better stuff for them. So that's like the most recent stuff.
Right. Ryan, you have been a freelancer for the last 15 years. How do you actually start this career, right? I mean, back then, I think not a lot of people are very familiar with this term called freelancers.
Well, if I'm going to be extremely blunt, I guess the reason for being a freelancer was unemployability when I first started. It wasn't that I couldn't get a regular job. I mean, that was fine, I could, but I didn't have the right kind of mindset for it. I didn't feel that I wanted to go and do the same thing every day. And I would be spending my time building up someone else's business. And then when I retire at 65, I mean, what have I got to show for it, right? So, and because of that, because that was always kind of at the back of my mind wherever I was working, I just wasn't very satisfied with that. So it would have been hard to really put my passion into what I was doing. So I went off and I started to try to do my own thing. Started by writing partly because, sometimes they pay for the trips, right? So we paid holidays. That was all I could afford at that point, right?
The original influencers.
And I started writing little articles because that's what I did when I was a student. So that's what I knew how to do. So it just seemed natural for me to write articles as well. So for small magazines and so forth. I think the biggest one was Esquire. And that's how I started. I made, in the first year when I was truly freelance, I made $750 a month for that whole first year. But at the end of that first year, I still felt more satisfied than like, a regular job. And that's when I knew that, the fact that I'm making less, but I'm still really into it, that shows that this is something sustainable for me.
So how about you, Hariz? How do you get started on this whole freelancing?
Yeah.
I would say, yeah.
Right. So I tried the full time. So I got my degree, and I was like, let's do a 9 to 5 job. Let's see if this is something for me. I don't like it. I think the best thing about being a freelancer is that you choose your hours. I want to wake up on a 10 o'clock. On the on a weekday, wake up 2 o'clock. Not really a problem, right? So I think that's one of the reasons why I tried the 9 to 5. I didn't like it because I didn't like reporting to a boss. I didn't like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do from this time to this time. I feel I'm more productive sometimes at 2 a.m. So like sleeping hours are very weird, by the way. But I get my work done. I feel that when I do get my work done, I also produce better because I didn't have to wake up 9 o'clock. I didn't have to my 3 coffees before I write a single word. So that just brought me into freelance. Okay, so after I quit the full-time job, and I was like, yeah, but I need to replace the income, right? So I just then figured out, what can I do, right? What can I do to keep myself busy, to make sure that I can still make a living, and pursue things that I maybe once thought was not possible. I did a lot of stage work back in poly days, secondary school days. I was in drama, musical theatre, directed my play. But after NS, you're like, there's no opportunity for that anymore. It's difficult. And so it's only because I did freelance work and I didn't have a 9 to 5 that I could then, okay, do you guys need a host? Do you guys need vocals on this day? Anybody doing short films, stuff like that. So I could then relive my passions, and a lot of my friends, I saw, the things that they love to do, they couldn't do anymore, and I was like, that's not what I want. So freelance was the only way. Yeah, so I pursued it.
So speaking of when you guys first started, both like Ryan, you mentioned, you were earning much lesser, and then for you, it was really an uncharted territory, just trying things out. Did you guys have a plan financially about, okay, I'm going to give myself 6 months, I have savings for 6 months if, I eat instant noodles every day kind of thing? Or was it just, heck it, let's just try it? Yeah.
I think regardless of what plan I had, I was eating instant noodles.
Do they still?
all the plans. Just, there wasn't a plan per se. There was a sense of a need for a plan. But whenever you try to put that plan into action, something comes along and derails it. You say you're going to save, 6 months of your savings. Something comes along and then wipes out the amount that you saved so far. This was always how it worked at that point. Something always came up to ruin the plan, whatever the plan was. I guess in the first few years, the first 3 or 4 years, I guess, it was good and bad. The bad part was none of the plans really went into fruition because I kept getting thrown by them. The good part was I learned something very important within those first few years, which has sustained me for a long time. The budgeting, the saving, the financial discipline is very important. It definitely is, okay? But before you do the budgeting and the savings and whatnot, your mindset shouldn't be such that when you need a certain amount of money, your first response is to immediately say, here's what I'm going to cut out of my life in order to have that much money. Your first response should be go out and try and find more work first.
Yeah.
You grow your income first. That should be the priority. And then as a last resort, then you start cutting things, right? And I believe that even later on when things stabilized and I was more financially stable, I think it was maintaining that attitude. Whenever I felt like I needed money for something, I would go out and look for it first rather than go, let's save $50 of this or that, right? I think that's a big part in what brought me forward financially.
Do you think your finance knowledge helps in that sense, right? In terms of managing your own finances and then, trying to grow your savings?
Yeah, so again, I got lucky in that regard. I'm a very lucky guy. After writing for a lot of people in the finance industry, writing about loans, when you write like 500-600 pages of this stuff, you really drill it into your brain, and you really know what you're talking about after a while. So, in a sense, in the process of working for these people, some of whom were director level and so forth, I think I was very lucky because I was getting free lessons from them.
Yeah.
And I could ask all the questions that I wanted, and they would answer. It was
of the
free
job, right?
advice.
Yeah, good
Part of the job.
Subconscious as well. Right?
I mean, the questions seem strangely related to my situation, but it's part of the job. So yeah, I mean that was a definite big plus for me. That's where I learned most of what I know. In fact.
How about yourself, Hariz? What was your 6 months plan, if you had ever had it?
I think for me, instead of like a plan, I had deadlines. I had to tell myself, okay, this is the set amount of time. I gotta, put some pressure on myself to try and make it work. Because you can't just keep going on like, this is not working, never mind, like give me some more time. It just doesn't work that way. Singapore doesn't allow you to work that way.
Yes.
It's very fast paced here. So I gave myself deadlines. I was like, okay, in 3 months, I need to have done this. If I've not, I have to like figure out, what went wrong? Is it me? Is it a lack of knowledge? Is it a lack of resource? And I had to like keep tracking, my accomplishments along the way.
Yep.
It worked well enough to tell me that, sometimes, okay, yeah, you suck here, move on. But sometimes it's like, okay, yeah, look, you did this and this. Let's pursue it further. Let's go deeper. Right? So I think I didn't really have like a long-term plan, just like really small, very short, deadlines. And that pressure and also because like I have a long-term girlfriend, and I was like, she pestered me, when are we gonna get married? When's the ring? So I was like, yeah, figure it out. And I was like, so these, deadlines really needed me to like sometimes slap me in the face now.
So there's that sense of urgency that was
had
given to you.
Yeah, I think freelancers, freelance, because you don't have a boss, because you don't have like KPIs, you can slack off, you can be a little bit lazy sometimes, and it's very hard to get out of that. So I think that discipline was very important for me to instill in myself.
Yeah. So talking about your girlfriend, and so how, when you first graduated and then worked for a short period of time and then eventually become a freelancer, how does your family react to it? Are they supportive of your decisions? How
Yeah, did I need to do any convincing?
Yeah.
No, my mom's actually pretty cool.
Oh.
So she supported me from young. I think she never really saw me as a conventional 9-to-5 worker. So I started entrepreneurship also when I was younger. It was because of my mother, So like, I'll tell you guys a story. When I was 10 years old, right, you go to Sheng Siong and it's like M&M minis in a triangle packet, right? And there were like in one tub there was 60, $6 from Sheng Siong. So one is 10 cents. My mom was like, go sell in school 20 cents. I made 100% profit, and like every time I sold one, I buy two. I made like $300 in like 3 months as like a 10-year-old, So, and like that was also when I learned like debit and credit. I had my own ledgers and stuff like that. So my mom has been really cool in pushing me towards that, into go start a business, into don't need to work for in a company. She wants a stable income for me, of course, but she's like, you're just not like that, and so. When I did quit my job and I wanted to do freelance, she's like, yeah, finally good. But
Finally.
figure it out, So she's always pushing me to make sure that I do the best decisions. She's always pushing me to make sure that I know what I'm doing, that I can report to her and like, yeah, this, And so she was cool about it. I didn't really need to come up with like a 36-page presentation to tell her that, Mom, I'm going to quit my job, don't freak out, So she was pretty okay
Your
with
mom
that.
was essentially your first boss.
I think everybody's first boss. I think when I'm 60, she'll still be my first boss. Yeah. So I think that was pretty cool. So I had a good family support system. Yeah, and for my girlfriend as well, she's kind of similar to me. So we don't see ourselves doing a 9-to-5 anytime soon. Yeah.
How about Ryan? Were your family
Yeah,
supportive
so
as well?
I need a 37 page. No, seriously. Actually, both my parents have been in HR. So one of the things about being in HR is that they know how to look at someone and then go, this is where that person's strength is at. And my dad knew right off the bat that I was not built for the kind of job where you screw nuts onto bolts, basically. We kind of do that kind of thing every day. So he was pretty accepting of it when, in fact, my dad and my mom have never once ever like prodded me and go, hey, when are you going to get a job? They just didn't say anything because they very cleverly didn't give me money, and they knew that I would need to get the money somehow. So I guess they knew that would kind of naturally sort of come about. But yeah, they've never intervened in it. If I needed help, I mean, the help is there in the sense that, you know, as a freelancer, it's very important to be able to be in a situation where if you have zero money and now things are really bad, at least you can go home, right? And there's food, right? That's a big deal. That's what helps you out at the start as a freelancer. So that was the support system for which I'm really grateful, because some people have much less than that. Yeah. My girlfriend's also a financial advisor, so she's essentially self-employed too. Before that, she was doing sales, fiber optics and all that. So she's always been in the sales line. She knows how it is. Yeah.
Great. Good that you have great family support.
Yeah.
It's very important.
Yeah, because when Creative at Work first started, we have clients who actually, you know, feel that negative, there's some negative connotation, right, to freelancing, right? They always feel that, you know, is it that they cannot get employments and things like that. So, and then as parents, then some of them say, oh, you know, I prefer you to have a stable job, you know, so that you can retire, you know, with houses. You need to buy your house, you need to buy your car, and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
About $4,000 a month on median wage is the cutoff point. Once you bring back that amount, people stop complaining.
That's true.
Advice.
That's
Yeah,
true.
that's good advice.
They're not really complaining so much that you are a freelancer. They are complaining about your perceived lack of security, because
Right.
Yes,
some as
right.
parents, they're also thinking, you know, I don't want to have to pay for your mortgage when you are like 42 years old. That's what they're thinking. So if you can kind of just show them, I mean, once you persist and you have stable income and the money comes in, if they feel that you are secure, then they'll stop complaining about it usually.
So how long does it take you to reach a point where you actually can say that, okay, my income has actually stable as a freelancer? How long does it take you?
This is the point at which I am no longer counting how many pieces I put in my own tau fu. If I'm standing there going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 50 cents each, then yeah. But in all seriousness, yes, you really do know when you stabilize, because you will feel that change in your lifestyle. When you no longer need to sit down and think, I cannot take a cab there because it's, you know, $4 more or something like that, right? On that level, when that tension of everyday costs are no longer there, you will know that it started to kind of stabilize a bit. And now you can put a number on it. Of course, if you have saved up 6 months of your expenses, if you're earning median wage, blah, 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 you can put those numbers on it. But to me, the most real and accurate identifier of when you are stable is when you're not waking up in the morning and freaking out because you don't know where your lunch is going to come from, or you have bills to pay that you have no idea how you're going to pay. When you are no longer in that situation, you know, you'll feel it. You'll know.
I remember those days. Bad memories.
No one ever forgets.
The wake up nightmares.
So speaking of that, right? We have spoken to a lot of creatives, both in Creatives at Work as well as through this journey of our podcast. And generally, the creatives are not very financially savvy. So what do you guys think personally of the creatives who you see or you know who are not, aren't doing the best jobs with their finances?
I think even those that look like, they've made it, it's still variable income most of the time. It's gonna be something that you're gonna live with for a good portion of, your freelancing career. A lot of things will be variable. And like one thing that a lot of people don't, like if you're really thinking about jumping to freelance, right? The one thing that we give up, CPF. Freelancers don't get CPF. You gotta self-contribute. 17% comes from your employer. So there is that part where you really need to think about it. Even when you think you've made it, you still got to keep doing it. And for those that, have not made it, who's still starting out, try to get more consistent. Try to go back to your previous clients because you grow along the way. There'll be people who reject you. But never like, I'm never going to speak to that guy again. Always go back. I've already done this, and this. You said no because of this, but that was a loss for you. Now here's my new rates, and now you should be getting me. So I think that there will be a journey of ups and downs. There will be a journey of lows and highs, but it's the discipline that you need to build. It is the reliability of income that you need to build, and you need to know what the trade-offs you make, and because I don't have CPF, I need to make sure that I create my own CPF kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
I actually don't think that creatives are inherently bad at finance. I think anyone who is really into what they do, if that thing is not finance, tends to be bad at finance. I have met brain surgeons, mathematicians, right, who are fully into what they do, who are absolutely terrible with financial management. It's not that they can't understand it, it's that their attention is elsewhere. They're focused on doing what they want to do. They don't want to sit around and talk about interest rates, They want to talk about Fermat's theorem or what have you. Just like an artist wants to talk about his use of zenithal lighting and so forth. They don't really want to sit down and then go like, oh, have you seen the fixed deposit home rates? You will be. It's just not them, right? So it's not so much that they are bad at it inherently. It's by inclination. They choose to pay less attention to this aspect of their life.
I honestly think freelancers would get better at finance because you don't have a reliable stream of income. You have to figure it out, because wow, this month, okay, maybe $700, maybe next month $1,500, they will be the ones who are trying to get the good deal. They will be the ones trying to maximize everything because of that no reliable income problem, So I think freelancers will slowly get better at it than guys who are full-time because they never really need to worry as long as they don't get fired, Yeah.
So the auntiness comes out of the
You need
freelancer.
to budget, man. Yeah.
But what are some of your advice, to freelancers who are just starting out, in terms of managing their cash flow and finance? Like, how do they start, right? In terms of understanding this, because I think a lot of freelancers when they first started, they are also, they will have to be focused on their craft because that's where they will get new clients and all this. But at the same time, because they are freelancers, they are individual, right? Then how do they then, focus and put a bit more attention into managing their finances?
I think it's the same for full-timers who are trying to move into freelancing as well. That is the main fear because what you mentioned, they don't have to worry about something coming into the bank account every month. But if they choose to do, be independent, then where's it going to come from? That's that huge fear that stops a lot of people from going into freelancing, being independent.
The most important thing, or the thing that made a big change for me, was to stop planning your budget based around next month's income. You really need, as a freelancer, to plan how you're going to spend your money next month based on how much money you have now. It shouldn't be a case of, can I buy this thing for $300? Or I think it might be okay because client XYZ is going to pay me $1,200 next month. Right? Because if you think that way, you're headed into trouble because clients will pay you late. Clients may not pay you at all.
Yeah.
Right? And this is the number one reason why people end up having to take out loans, use credit where they can get it, right? The most important thing really is you save up for a little while, have a little nest egg, and then from that point on, you plan how you're going to spend your money next month based on how much money you have this month. Don't worry about who's going to... Well, do worry about who's going to pay you next month, but it will not destroy your life if, they end up paying you late. Right?
I think for me, because I do talk a lot about finance online.
Yes.
A lot of the advice that people give on finance has been for the full-timers, right? Self-employeds have their own issues altogether.
Yeah.
Don't look at the stuff that people write generally because that is built for somebody who has stable income. A lot of times, like if you read my advice online, somehow you stumble upon it. I always repeat 6 months of salary, 6 months of expenses, keep aside emergency cash. As a freelancer, hold more, way more. A year and a half, if you can. Don't try and like chase high return. Just focus more on security. Focus more on being, at least if people don't pay me the next few months, I can at least survive, and it can be a long period of time. So hold more cash. And one thing that freelancers don't really get to abuse recently would be like the recent high savings accounts, your DBS multipliers, your OCBC 360s, because you don't have that salary credit that is like quite the big amount of the bonus interest. So you need to look elsewhere as well. But a lot of people will say, oh, get this, but you know that it's not possible. So a lot of the online advice, you need to take it with a pinch of salt. You need to know that it may not have been written for you. So speak to other freelancers that have done it. It's the only way we learn. We can only learn from people who have done it before. That's all knowledge in the world because somebody has figured it out.
So, do you think that it's important for freelancers to also look into areas where they can grow their own passive income?
I believe so, yes. I think everybody should. The thing about passive income is that it's slow, right? It's not something that, okay, I'm going to work for the next 5 years, build so much passive income that I never have to work again. That's not possible, unless you bought Bitcoin like 2012, So I think that passive income is a great thing, but active income is more important. Because as a freelancer, you have the choice to make more income than anybody else. If you're stuck in a 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, you want to relax on Saturday and Sunday, But as a freelancer, you can actually make more. So focus on active income. Passive income can come, good, build it, yes. But focus on expanding and like try to squeeze yourself dry as much as possible, especially when you're young, a little bit more energy, when you're fresh. Super freelancer here. Move more into passive income.
One big advantage of freelancing that people do not point out often enough is active income. If as a freelancer you choose to work twice as hard, there's a good chance that you can make twice as much. If you are a regular employee, you work twice as hard, your boss tells you thank you, and then you get even more work. Okay, you're not going to get paid more. I mean, some companies you get paid more, but that's not the norm. So you want to take full advantage of the fact that as a freelancer, you can actually go out there, push harder, and actually see tangible results, right? So take full advantage of that. If you've got the bandwidth to push for more, go out and do that.
It's why gig economy is such a big thing nowadays. Gig economy is not because there's a lot of freelancers. It's because a lot of full-timers just want to make more money. Like, what can I do on a weekend? I do Grab food, for example. It's because they've realized that, hey, these freelancers guys got it figured out. They have so much time to do other things. I think that you really need to exploit that. Sleep is for the weak. Work 20 hours, I don't know. But active income is something you need to focus on.
Right. So we see a lot of energy in probably the younger freelancers and all this, right? But if let's say you are like, Ryan, 15 years into it, right? Do you at any one point in time will feel like, oh, this is just too much for me to take, or I'm just getting tired of the, do you ever got moment like
Oh yeah, for me that's a Tuesday.
Schedule.
schedule?
4 to 6, get tired.
I think there's like a little loop or little curve. Okay, this may be different for other freelancers. I'm not sure, but I can tell you how this works for a writer. First, at the start, you get very frustrated and tired because you have to worry about things that you think are external to your writing. For example, if it's online, how many views am I getting? How many shares am I liking, right? And then it's an uphill curve because all these things are subtracting from your energy and it's hard. It's getting harder and harder. But you cross a certain threshold where suddenly you start getting obsessed with how many likes and shares that you get as well. Then that stuff gets you going instead, and then it actually becomes easier as that becomes more a part of your job. Maybe similar to musicians. I think a lot of new musicians, the crowd is a problem when you're just starting out, and then after that the crowd gets you high and then that gets you going. So there's kind of a threshold, and at the start, before you hit that point where your job gets you going, if you're a writer, this is the point at which you wait for inspiration before you write, right? Seasoned writers, the writing creates the inspiration. We force ourselves to do it, then we feel inspired to do it. But before you get to that point, it's very steep, and you're gonna feel like you want to give up every day. And I always say to new writers that that's good, because if you feel exhausted at the end of the day, if you feel like you can't take it anymore, if you feel like you cannot feel your face and your brain is dribbling out your ear, then good ah. That's how you should feel. That's called work. That's how the rest of us feel. That means you're doing it the right way. If you feel happy and fresh at the end of the day, you're not working. Something's wrong. You're not doing something right? Which is not to say that your work cannot be enjoyable. I'm just saying that you need to push through until it gets to the point where even though you feel tired, you're still energized by the fact that your work feels beneficial and productive and useful.
So having that inspiration and that creative spark aside, right? A lot of the content that you guys create nowadays is being molded by how many views you get, how much readership you get. Does that affect the types of jobs that you get? Does it affect the career path in general?
I think like if I were to say it from like a music point of view, like an arts point of view, some people call it selling out. Try to pander towards what people want. You can't be crazy and do something that nobody's gonna care for. But you need to understand that's how business works. Sometimes freelancers, they get into it because of passion, and they forget that somebody has to pay for your work. And even though it sounds like a bad thing, selling out, it's just making sure that you provide value for the people that you work for. If it's for yourself. It's because you do get views, you do get shares, or you do get engagement or whatever. That's showing that you are doing a good work. You're doing a good job, and it's the only way to actually like really make money. If you can't be naive about it, you can't be like, no, I need to stick to my craft. I need somebody will like this one day. Yes, it's great. You want to hold on to that, sure, but you still need to understand that money makes the world go round, in some sense.
There is one other precaution that I would mention here. If you ever get to the point where you feel that you're not as good as you used to be, which will happen to everyone at some point, that can actually be a sellout effect. Because if you're writing and you find that you're not getting a response, maybe it's because in the past when you were writing, you were doing it out of a genuine desire to connect with someone and have a good conversation with someone. You really were going out of your way to entertain someone. But now you're obsessing over, what are my SEO keywords? How many views am I getting? How many? And when you get too stuck in that mode, that can take you away from where the quality of your work originally came from. Because now you're coming from a different place, and people will sense that in the work that you produce. Doesn't matter what you're doing, dancer, writer, photographer. If you really have gotten to the point where you are truly only doing it for money, people will sense it and they'll pick it up in your work. So some degree of moderation as well. If you find that suddenly things are going downhill, then maybe you also need to take a step back and think, well, I need to maintain that quality as well, right? So, yeah.
I think a lot of freelance work comes out from passion. So you do need to, balance the value part of it, but still, you got to still be passionate. Once you do feel it like a chore, then it's going to suck. When you feel like crap, your work's going to be crap also. Yeah.
So what are some of the challenges or mistake you kind of faced during your entire career?
Like, was there any one point of time you felt that I made a super wrong decision, be it taking up a wrong client or not taking that client up, or I don't know, in some other financial decision, I shouldn't have bought that car.
Or that condo.
That's
that
sort
condo.
of any mistakes that you can share with us?
So there was a point where I thought it would be a great idea. I'd saved up quite a bit. I'd been quite diligent. I thought it would be a great idea to take my money and pay off all my loans because, what a relief, right? So I did. I took all my money, paid off all my loans. Problems came along and I had no money.
Yeah.
And then that's when I realized that, when I'm standing in line at a coffee shop, I can't tell the uncle there, I don't have any money, but I'm debt free, It's not going to the food. So the fact that, the one thing that I want to point out to you here is, if you decide to rush certain repayments in your life, let's say you decide to have a fully paid up house by the time you're 40 years old. Congratulations, okay? You emptied every last dollar you got into that. What happens when an emergency comes along? What does your fully paid up house mean? What does your fully paid up car mean if you have no money and you're having a medical crisis or something like that, right? So even though there is this oversimplified bit of financial advice that goes around, people tell you, just pay off your loans quickly, pay off your loans quickly. Don't. Pay off your loans intelligently. Don't wipe yourself out paying the loan, and then you have no money, and then later, guess what? You take loans again, and the whole thing just gets started all over
Sometimes at
again.
higher interest also.
Yes, sometimes at higher interest.
Coming from a mortgage guy, you gotta hear this, man. I think for me, I've mistakes that I've made. I think I've been quite lucky to not make huge mistakes, small mistakes here and there. But I mean, I think that I feel that a lot of the things I could have avoided will be to please other people. Sometimes we want to show off that you're doing well. I think that ego sometimes comes to you as well, because you put so much effort. You're like, hey guys, I don't have to work 9 to 5, and like this. So sometimes you want to show off, and I think that it's just a night, maybe it's just a few weeks, you feel good, but then nobody really cares after that. So I think that just make sure that you're happy. You don't have to really show off that you're doing well for yourself. You don't have to go out of your way to please other people. I think those are things I could have avoided. Yeah.
So in terms of the freelancing landscape, right, do you actually think that there will be more freelancers? How do you think the landscape has actually evolved in Singapore?
I don't know if there will be more freelancers. I do think there will be more voluntary freelancers. There will be more people who freelance because they choose to be freelancers rather than, just something to tide them over until the full-time job.
I think that like if we really look at what just recently happened, gig economy suddenly became like a buzzword, maybe only in the recent 3 to 4 years, right? I think that instead of looking at, what's going to happen in terms of freelancers, I'm going to say that a lot of traditional ways of doing things will not be as, appealing anymore. I think that when people see that you can have more control, more freedom, that's something that you want, right? I think traditional 9 to 5 would be a lot more flexible in the future. They may even look like freelance, but that's just how maybe the industry would need to change to serve that want of people. Nobody might want to stick with the traditional, so we will see jobs not going away, but changing very differently over the next decade or so.
Especially with the technology catching up
Yeah.
with all of it.
Yeah, talking about this, right, because right now a lot of the buzzword, especially in Singapore, innovation, transformation, right, industry 4.0. So to a freelancer, do you think it means anything?
I guess familiar with the...
I don't even know what 3.0 was. I must have missed that. I think they were talking about 2.0. Did we go past 3?
Yeah, we skipped through. Yeah, you're right.
Microsoft
I thought
8, there's no 9, straight to 10. That disruption. I think that is something that a lot of people talk about. I think as freelancers, we should not care about that. It's the top business guys that have to care about that. I think it's just making sure that you do good work, that you provide value, that you're still passionate in what you're doing. The business landscape will actually have to shift, and you would ride the wave. There's no way to say no, I don't want to do this, or yes, I want to chase that. I think as individuals, we may not really have that push to kind of change the industry as a whole.
I do agree. On some level, asking us whether we care is like asking the boat its opinion on the next wave.
It's gonna happen.
Ride it, yeah. But it does help to be a little bit aware of it, just so that when you decide how you're going to upskill, that can help a little bit. But that being said, what takes precedence in choosing how to upskill should be, your jobs and what roles you need to fulfill. Don't go against that because you read in a magazine article somewhere that oh, accounting is going to be the next big thing. You never know. That might be wrong, right? So upskill based on your job needs. If you want to upskill and you don't know where else to expand to, then maybe you can take a hint from these sorts of reports and you can try and check that out.
Okay, but thank you both so much for
Thank you.
coming
Thank you.
down and
Yeah.
speaking to us and sharing all your knowledge and your experiences with us and with our audience. And thank you, all of you, your audience, for joining us for another episode of Freelance Creative Exchange.
If you enjoyed the episode, please click on the like button and follow us or leave a comment below.
Or subscribe by hitting the bell button so you won't miss out on the next interview.
So until then, we'll see you. Have an awesome week.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.